What is the best business book you would recommend to people that they should read?
Best business book, slightly tangential answer, but I think the Bhagavad Gita is still like the best book. Cross-border payments, in fact, has more than $500 billion transacted on a daily basis. You have a safety net, which means whenever you see the first roadblock, you're like, this is not working out. I'll just bounce and go back to my job. That's like the biggest challenge I see. Like I met so many people who are like, oh, I'll first find customers in HSR, then I'll find customers in Bangalore, then I'll find customers in India, and then I'll think global. No, why? Just go global from day zero. Your customer can be in Kazakhstan, they can be in Brazil, they can be in Bali, they can be in US, they can be anywhere. Like, why are you limiting yourself?
Hi everyone. In this episode, I get a chance to sit with Rishabh Goel. Rishabh is the co-founder and CEO at Dodo Payments. Dodo Payments provides solutions for businesses to launch and accept payments across 190 plus countries. In this episode, we discuss the massive scale of international payments, the regulatory challenges that come with it, what is a merchant of record model, how did Dodo Payments acquire their first 100 customers, where is AI being used in Dodo Payments, and where is it useful, where is it not, and much more. I had a great time recording this with Rishabh. I really hope you guys find this useful. With that, my friends, Rishabh Goel. So probably let's start with the basics, and my basics are very bad. So at least coming from my perspective, right, I honestly thought like payments, I don't know, maybe cross-border payments or even domestic payments were completely solved. When I look at companies like Razorpay and offshore, if I look at companies like Stripe, doing really well private, I like coming from an outsider perspective, it just feels like payments is obviously solved. Like who is struggling with this? So why could you just lay out for us like why is another platform needed, or what is the need here?
So, 2-3 points. First of all, payments is one of the largest industries. Cross-border payments, in fact, has more than $500 billion transacted on a daily basis, like almost 600 billion a day. Okay, that's a massive
Cross-border.
number. Cross-border.
Okay.
On a daily basis. And when you start slicing and dicing, you'll find small pockets that will have massive TAM, just because the space is so massive. Okay, that's point one. Second is, payments is a fairly tricky business to build because it's one of the most regulated industries out there. If I'm a regulator, if I'm able to regulate payments, I'm also able to regulate a lot of other aspects of the economy. So if I regulate payment gateways, I ensure that GST is collected and remitted because I enforce the payment gateways. I can also enforce the payment gateways to do due diligence. What type of merchants are you onboarding? And then any activities or products or services that I'm not comfortable as a regulator, you could get that banned. So payments, first of all, is massive. Secondly, highly regulated. And thirdly, there are so many nuances in terms of the customer base you pick up. Okay, so I'll answer on all three parts. Today, at Dodo Payments, we are focused on a very small sector in the big scheme of things, but I think it's a very large TAM in itself. You have with AI a lot of entrepreneurs from anywhere in the world who can launch a tech product, a SaaS product or a tech product or a digital product. Cost of delivery is zero because it's on the internet. Cost of discovery for a customer is also zero because they can discover you on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, or SEO or whatever. So you technically can launch something in India or setting from Bali or setting from Kenya or setting from US, and you will have customers from all over the world. Now the challenge is payments. One ways you're correct. Like Razorpay has solved amazingly well, but they've solved within the Indian domestic infra. Why? Because they got a license from RBI. Similarly, Stripe has licenses from some 35-40 countries, but these licenses don't talk to each other. So if you have a license, say Stripe has a license in India and US both. Now with Indian license, they can offer RuPay, they can offer domestic processing in India, and with the license in US, they offer local processing in US, but also other payment methods like Apple Pay, Google Pay, Affirm, Klarna, because endemic payment methods to the US. Now, if you are onboarded with Stripe India, you cannot access the US payment methods because these payment methods work with the US regulator, not with the Indian regulator. The payment processing is also different. So fundamentally what happens is you can only optimize your payments for your home country if you work with a payment gateway. Your international payments are routed through a third party stack. you don't have the payment methods that you would like to offer. Like small gig sizes, you don't want people to pull out their cards. You want them to just pay via biometric, takes like 2 seconds. Or large gig items, you want them to pay via BNPL, especially in a credit hungry or credit first country or economy like America. So those are the two limitations, and given that it's a third party stack, you will have a lot of failure rates. The compliances don't talk to each other. Funnily, like Indian regulators require 3D Secure 2.0, basically Challenger Flow, which is OTP in India, for all transactions, irrespective if they're in India or not. And a lot of edtech companies work with an Indian PG, have customers in like Bangladesh or Pakistan, and these two economies don't have a great infrastructure for the 3D Secure 2.0, which means you effectively have minimal success rates, because the compliances there just don't add up to the compliances in India. And so all of these challenges come in. So the point is, if you're launching something and you want to collect payments via a payment gateway, your international payments are not optimized, and that is the key problem we're solving.
So for any transaction to go through credit card, they have to have an OTP, is it? Like?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why, when you pay for Twitter, it's what, 1,800 or whatever rupees, but since Twitter gets processing from abroad, the card fails every time. You have to do the Challenger Flow every month, and you have to keep giving token to the to Twitter or to LinkedIn. LinkedIn gets processing from Singapore. So your recurring transactions keep failing.
Okay.
Yeah.
The auto pay basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing, if you can shed light on here, is license the moat here? Like you mentioned,
No, license is not the moat. License is in fact a limiting factor, because you can only optimize payments where you have license, and the optimization is valid only for merchants or let's put it this way, entities of that country. So you might have licenses in all countries, but the licenses don't talk to each other. So if I onboard an Indian merchant and I have license in all countries, I still can only use the Indian infra, because a US doesn't understand what a GST number is, what a PAN number is, what a CI number is. Similarly, an Indian would not understand what an EI number, which is a tax number in the US, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually, in our opinion, it limits you, which is where Dodo payment comes in. We are an abstraction on top of payment gateways globally. What we have recognized is every major market has multiple payment gateways that work amazingly. So you have Stripe in the US, you have Go Cardless in UK, Aegean works amazingly in Europe, Razorpay Cash Free in India, Zengek Doku in Southeast Asia, Moment and a few others in Africa, eBanks in LATAM, or Mercado Pago in LATAM.
Is there something about payment gateways that, in general, as far as I'm hearing it, there are no major, there's no one player which dominates across like half the globe or anything? It seems like all domestic players seem to be emerging in every specific country.
Yeah. So it is quite a...
like how you had Visa, MasterCard, like which dominated like the whole...
So Visa, MasterCard are payment methods,
okay.
And Stripe, Razorpay, etc. payment gateways. So payment gateways aggregate payment methods, so your customers can choose the right payment method for them. That's essentially like the key difference.
Okay.
But they can only aggregate payment methods that are available in that country. So Visa, MasterCard, Amex, PayPal, they've spent like decades building global processing. But UPI, for example, Modi ji's been trying for like half a decade to get it internationally rolled out. Not really seen a lot of success, not as much as we would like to see. Apple Pay, Google Pay are not allowed in India.
Yeah.
There are always these challenges that come in.
Like what country in your opinion has like the most regulatory nightmare, like very highly regulated or very difficult to kind of crack?
I'll pick the answer difficult to crack. There are many ways of answering this. So it's regulations, I think, make things challenging. There are some countries which don't have regulations in place for a lot of these things, in Africa, etc. So that of course is challenging. Then there's some jurisdictions which have regulations, but they can be quite a bureaucratic maze. And then there are some jurisdictions where there is like a lot of gray area, and you don't know how the gray area will be spelled out in the future. So it is not a easy place to operate, in my opinion. There is always significant amount of regulatory uncertainty you think about.
Like, which is better, like a place where there is like the rules are not even like written down, or like where lay of the land is like very very all over the place, or like everything is clear but it's very bureaucratic? Like, which do you prefer in general?
The latter, because it might take time,
But it'll happen.
But it will happen,
Understood.
and you're not gonna be in trouble in the future.
So can you walk us through more of the compliance bit, the legal bit? If I'm not wrong, I think you guys are Dodo is present in more than 130, 150.
Yeah, so let me first explain the business model, and then so we are not a payment gateway. Okay, we do not have a payment license, nor do we aspire at any point of time to own a license. Okay, there are enough players in the world who have licenses and know how to move money. We are just a platform that consolidates all of these payment providers. Think the technical concept is called merchant of record. Okay, and I want to pick an example for more clarity. So most of us would have a subscription from OpenAI or Anthropic for the $20 bit. And if you go to the website and purchase it, it's $23.6 because they're required to collect sales tax even if they're not an Indian entity. But you still have to pay via US dollars. Okay, and a lot of Indians don't have Visa, MasterCard, they have RuPay cards. Majority, I believe, at the moment are RuPay cards. And even if they have Visa, MasterCard, international payments may not be enabled. Even if they enable, you charge like a 2 to 4% surcharge, etc., etc. Okay, the FX rate sucks, blah, blah. Okay, what the solution is, people download the app on Apple App Store or Google Play Store, and Apple and Google through the Play Store and App Stores have built this global network where in each country they have local processing. So you actually pay 1,700 to 2,000 rupees in INR, and you're able to pay via UPI autopay.
I did not know this. I'm paying 2,300 every month.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So try that. Okay. Now the question is, why is Apple and Google able to do this and not ChatGPT or Claude for that matter? Well, what Apple and Google do are, they have built their own merchant of record model. That means they have integrated with payment providers in all major markets, and they do local settlements. So when you are paying on an app on your Google Play Store, it's actually a payment to Google. The UPay autopay is not from OpenAI or Anthropic, it's from Google. Okay, and you're paying to Google, and Google does all the settlement and then pays out to OpenAI and Anthropic. It's the same model with us. We're not going to charge 30%, but we are setting up entities in all major markets. That entities integrate with local payment providers to a local collection. So you might be an Indian and you launch a SaaS product, and your first customers from US, your second customers from UK, your third customers from Netherlands. I'm able to process locally in all of these jurisdictions in the local currency, in the local payment method of their preference, and then bring all of the money together and settle to you on a very reliable, regular cadence. That is essentially what I'm doing. Okay, how I'm able to do this, how Apple and Google are also able to do this is because you become something called an official reseller of the product. Which is why once I'm reselling something, the invoice is issued by the reseller, which would be Google or Apple or me, not the original merchant.
So you're the customer of the...
Yeah, so technically I'm a reseller. I resell the products, and I'm reselling the products through my global network of entities, and these entities get onboarded with the local payment infra. So irrespective of your customer location, it's a domestic transaction via domestic currency, domestic payment method with a local settlement. So success rates are ridiculously high. Your customers are able to pay in a very optimized fashion in the preferred payment method. There is no additional transaction fees because you're not routing the money through third party. There's no currency exchange for small ticket items. And then I club all of this amount, and I'm able to make a weekly payout to the merchant through a bulk transaction, and because we deal in massive volumes, we're able to get amazing rates there as well.
So is it required that because you mentioned wherever you operate, you will know of their legalities and you will take care of all the compliances, etc. Does it require for you to set up like a team, not a team, like at least I don't know, like a team in all the places, or can everything happen like through Bangalore itself, or how does that work?
Yes and no. For two reasons. First of all, is many countries mandate a local rep representative, like Singapore, most EU countries, uh, a lot, Brazil, etc. You would need a local rep who either is part of the board or is like the legalized notary slash authority to represent you should anything happen. You also are required by some countries to have like a nodal officer, grievance officer, etc. The second, that's like reason number one. The second reason you might want local people is because these things are quite complex, and you sitting in India, you working with a CA, you can't expect legal and accounting professionals to understand best practices globally, because they vary from country to country, and what is applicable in country A is not applicable in country B. So if you're a great legal professional or accounting professional, you would know the first principles and you can understand how things would work, but the nuances, the specifics is something you cannot expect someone who has, done even if they've done like a LLM abroad, which is a master's in law, you can't expect them to, really know this. So you need local people to help you out.
You spoke about the merchant of record model.
Yeah.
Are there alternatives to that model, or was that the most logical thing that you could think of?
So it's one of the oldest business models out there, because traders have been there for the longest time. Like my parents live in the Middle East. Like majority of the businesses initially there were trading companies. Like they would bring stuff from abroad and then they would resell it. So it's a model that is quite obvious from a legal point of view. It's just a reseller. The challenge is the form factor in a digital environment is challenging to make sure it's compliant. But there are some companies that have done well. But I would just urge you to think about any large company which has a global customer base by default ends up doing this. So let's take another example. I'm not sure how much you have traveled, but if you ever travel and make a booking, say through booking.com or Make My Trip, and you want to cancel that booking, you don't call the hotel, because the hotel will say, look, the booking is made by the platform. You have to call the platform and get the platform to change it. Same for flights. If you make a booking on yatra.com for a SpiceJet or Air India or whatever, and you want to change the flight, you don't call the airline directly, you call the platform. Why? Because they are the merchant of record. They resold the tickets. They are responsible for all the invoicing and everything, and they hold the inventory in some ways in a very critical format. So it gives them that you reach out to ensure whatever changes need to be made, or the GST that is linked to them if you want to claim input credit for business travel. So that again, think of even a company like Steam, right? You can buy games from Steam. You have app publishers from all over the world. But when you make the payment, it's to Steam, and Steam manages payments globally. Another example could be like as simple as YouTube, right? So you have a lot of creators publish their content, and then this either gets monetized by ad revenue or by the super chats, etc. YouTube is able to collect money in all the currencies, all the payment methods across the world for these super chats or subscriptions, etc. And it pays out to the creator in whatever country and bank account and currency it makes sense. So ultimately, any large company which crosses like 10 to 50 billion and has like global ambitions, has a certain B2C angle or a product like angle, will build this in-house. But why build this, bro? Like that's what we're changing.
Slightly philosophical and maybe more practical, which is from the outsider perspective, right? Like from my experience or whatever, my history or whatever, it just seems like what you are doing is like so difficult in the sense like because of the legal aspects, right? Like if tomorrow somebody was to come to me and if I wanted to start a company and tomorrow somebody was to come to me, let's build this thing where we have to take care of all the legalities of different countries and make sure everything is right, that would scare me slightly a little bit. So that is on the emotional part, maybe like what did that not like kind of like scare you or make you a little resistant? Second of all, on the practicality bit, I noticed that you guys raised $1.1 million in February. At least the announcement was in February. Is it not possible for or I feel at least outsider perspective is like I feel it's very difficult to do that without raising like a decent amount of money because of all the like legalities involved and all that. Is my assumption true?
The first answer I'll explain, the second answer is yes and no. So for the first answer, look, that is where I felt I had the edge, because people don't enjoy law, people don't enjoy, reading, but I love reading books. Okay, a lot of the lawyers is reading different literature and then building an opinion. So that's where I feel I have a certain right to win that others would not, because I don't mind picking up acts, laws, and just understanding despite the dry language. So that's kind of gave me the confidence that I might be the right person for this. In fact, for like I one of like a good chunk of books I've read are legal books or books related around jurisprudence, just something of personal interest. So that is in fact the reason why I was like, I don't care if it matters to like a customer or anywhere, but I know I have the confidence that should anything happen in the future, if the regulations change or whatever, of course there'll be like I have like a legal counsel and we'll have more people as we go along. But I, as a founder, I'll not be completely in the blind. I will be able to figure it out and things from first principles basis with all the legal inputs in place. The second point is yes. Building this is quite challenging if you're building grounds up, and in my opinion you need money. So we announced the product, announced the fundraise after we launched the product, but we completed the raise before we built the product.
I thought that was really impressive. I mean, like, could you maybe shed some light on like how somebody can like what it takes to like, and it's not a small amount, right?
Yeah, but
do you have any advice on that? Like,
look, if you tomorrow say that I'm building a factory for whatever reason, and I need like 5 crores to set that factory up, where 1 crore goes into getting the land, like capital machinery requires 2 crore, staff requires, and it's a fundamental need of the business. You cannot build a product if the product demands significant upfront investment. So just be very clear on that and communicate that properly to your potential investors. For us, we are building everything grounds up, where we work with 10 plus payment providers. We have our own merchant onboarding policy. We have our own policy on the own risk policy. Everything is being built in-house, but there are merchant of records that you can build on top of just one payment provider. Okay, and you can work with that payment provider for all aspects of including KYC, KYB, including payouts, etc. So if you just build a wrapper on top of a single payment provider, which actually was bootstrapped, there was a company called Lemon Squeezy. They were a merchant of record. They built everything on top of Stripe US particularly. Their USP was different. Our USP is more towards, payments should be localized no matter where a customer is. Their USP was more about onboarding with Stripe is painful. You need to submit your ID, you need to do integration, etc. I can get you going in like 24 hours.
they got acquired by Stripe, right?
And they got acquired by Stripe because it makes sense. But they were bootstrapped, and they could do it because they were using Stripe for everything. Okay, they're using Stripe for Stripe Identity for KYC, KYB, Stripe Express for checkouts, Stripe PG of course for payments, Stripe Billing for subscriptions. So that was possible. Our approach is fairly different. We have a infra agnostic platform. So we work with multiple players, including Stripe, but we work with more than 10 plus payment providers. We have our own fraud engine. We have our own merchant policy. We have our own onboarding system. We have our own payout logics. So it's all something we have to build on our own. We have our, most importantly, we have our own billing and subscription engine. So yeah, that's like the key reason why the approach we took, that we wanted to be payment agnostic in terms of infra, is why we needed to raise funds. If you don't make that choice, you can be bootstrap this business.
You mentioned, I want to segue slightly into maybe AI here, because you mentioned of all the things that you're doing internally, right? Could you shed light on like how it's probably impacting, like on a day-to-day basis, how you might be using it, your company might be using it, and like any productivity gains that you might be seeing due to AI tools that you might use, etc.
So we see a lot of productivity gains, but I'll be honest, as of today, we are not an AI first company. We are a payments first company, which means like at some point of time, We will have core AI first products. I am not at luxury to share them at the moment, but we will have core products which are heavy on AI. Probably in this next 9 to 12 months.
I'm really sorry. If you can if I can take a step back, could you maybe just two-liner on what is the AI first product and what is the payment first product? I don't know what that means actually.
Oh, sorry. So basically, today we are fundamentally a payments company, right? I think there's not a strong role of payment of AI today in what we are building, but around 9 to 12 months down the line, you'll see us with a bunch of in-house products that are AI first. So what would those be? Think of fraud. Like we currently work with third-party players, but we'll move in-house once we have enough data points and you can build AI models on top of it. Think of a lot of the onboarding that can be simplified and automated via AI. But the core of why I said it's at the moment it's not a strong focus is, or we are not AI native, is because AI still has a slight issue with hallucinations, and that affects a lot of things, right? All the legal compliance aspects, we can't afford to have mistakes. So we do heavily leverage LLMs for productivity, but it's still human first, or everything gets checked by human in the legal compliance accounting aspect. Then for backing, we try your AI tools, but we write in Rust, and this is critical infrastructure. We cannot have mistakes because of vibe coding. So our role of AI is very limited. We still use it, but it's very limited because the product has to be damn good, and AI is not there yet in terms of Rust and the type of engineering that back-end engineering, especially that payment business requires. The front end is that our front end guy is a beast because he's doing like work of 5 people simply because of Cursor. Our designer is also a beast. Like it's just so easy for him to create ideas, etc. Product, we are able to do like 4 people's job because creating documentation, maintaining documentation, answering to support tickets, etc. becomes so much easier because we have you can use AI to convert a PRD into documentation, and then we have trained an AI to create the first cut of answers based on our documentation, and then any ticket comes in, we already have a ready drafted answer and we just need to edit if required and then respond. So that is where we use. I personally use AI a lot as a brainstorming tool, as a tool to double check things, sense check a lot of things, summarize legal reports, etc.
You mentioned you might be aggressively moving towards AI maybe in the 9 to 12 month framework. Is that mostly because in the timeline? Is that mostly because you foresee that AI's LLMs will be more reliable then?
No, it's mainly because we start building a lot of new products where AI makes a lot more sense. So all your Radar or any other product that is popular for fraud, they're all built on machine learning, and AI is an extension of machine learning. So we expect fraud to be heavily driven by AI. There are certain other tools that I'm not at liberty to share, but they will be AI first.
Could you maybe talk about the AI space maybe in India or globally, like how you see that, like what kind of companies that you are kind of seeing built? What is the potential for AI to maybe help companies, either the ones that are AI first itself, or existing companies which will leverage AI to maybe make their products better? How are you seeing the space, and if your thoughts on that?
Most of the companies that I see are like AI first in some way or the other, especially that started in the last 12 to 18 months, which is phenomenal. If you look at AI, you can broadly bucket into 2. You have the enterprise motion and you have the consumer motion. Okay, enterprise motion, you're seeing like insane amount of traction because you're not going after the software spend, you're going after the people spend. So you have we work with a bunch of companies that have these are popular themes, so I'll just tell you. One is a lot of voice agents, especially in the US. So if you think about law, right, there are certain types of legal cases where you need to make calls and get information. So those voice agents are doing phenomenally well. Selling something to lawyers which is core about the constitution or the law is pretty tough, but anything that reduces man hours, especially in the US, insane traction. Because I'm now pegging my rates versus not a software spend, but versus what would it take for them to hire like an intern or a contractor or a consulting or even maybe a full-time person to make those calls, get that information. It's pretty menial in nature. That's like that, those kind of like, or even hiring, right? A lot of AI companies have come up that work with enterprises, single value prop, like we reduce your time and effort to recruit your next hire. And for these enterprises, that's like the main KPI for the HR team. So those are going really well. It's actually very scary how it would go because you're essentially pitching AI as replacement for human spend. So I'm very curious how this trend goes in the next 2 to 5 years.
I think it's called service as software, right?
Yeah, service as a software is like
That's what I've heard, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way of doing this. And then you have the other one, which is consumer, where you can just launch a very nifty tool, and people are willing to pay for it. I see a lot of traction there as well. However, it's slightly frothy. I've seen like companies take off and then go down also quickly. So I haven't seen really a lot of companies that are durable. The ones that have been durable over time or in this consumer space are usually dev tools. So Cursor, Lovable, Bolt, they're great, but we see now a lot of consumer app tools coming in, and I'm just curious to see how that evolves.
I think consumer space, besides OpenAI, besides ChatGPT, I'm not able to think of a lot of consumer tools which have really done well. But ChatGPT in itself has done really, really well.
But no, there are a ton of tools, right? Even there are tools for, you will be surprised like the kind of things people are willing to pay for.
But it seems like ChatGPT has like eaten almost everybody's revenue.
So this is where I think, sorry to interrupt, but one of the cons of not having TikTok is that a lot of the consumer spend in US is driven by discovery on TikTok. Okay, so you might have a tool that makes it easy to manage Excel sheet, or you might have a tool that I don't know, like you have an Instagram account and a lot of people are DMing you and you just want to manage those DMs, okay, as an influencer. So that works. So there are some crazy, it's very easy now to find a very particular niche where you can earn like say 1 million a month at scale and just vibe code something. And if you execute the GTM properly, you will hit those numbers. The problem is, will those numbers continue?
I actually agree with that. I don't know. At least I have a recent anecdote where I was sitting in a cafe and the guy next to me, obviously, he was a founder. Not obviously, but he was a founder. And he was telling me, so they have a learning Spanish app, which their marketing is mostly happening on TikTok, where they advertise on TikTok, and that's how they are at this point. I think 500K and ARR at this point. So yeah, it seems reasonable. Yeah. If I can continue on the thread of marketing, on March 23rd, I think you ended up ranking number 2 on Product Hunt. Could you maybe walk us through? I think there are a lot of people who, when they are launching, when they build something, I think their hope is to maybe launch on Product Hunt and maybe get a lot of visibility through that community, stuff like that. You ended up, number 2. Could you maybe share some advice or, what your tips would be? And in retrospect also, what you could have done maybe a little different?
So we need to be very clear what Product Hunt today is. So I've been a user of Product Hunt since 2015. I was in this company called TransferWise back in the day, and all the product team would every morning geek out and this kind of product came in. I was like, whoa, like this is a completely new space for me to think about. So I've come from that journey where it was a very organic. It was a place where a lot of the top PMs would go to just see what's happening in the product space. I don't think discovery of products happen that much on Product Hunt anymore, but it's still a great place to be present at. Okay, it's great for branding, it's great for visibility, and for us, our approach was very clear. We wanted to hit number 1 on Product Hunt. Did not achieve it. I think. We were not featured on Product Hunt for the longest time. If you see our post, you'll find there was a spike at the end when we created a lot of ruckus on social media, like why were we not featured? We did everything. We followed all the best practices. We create a notify page. We had like 200 people click on notify me. We had like more than 200 comments, and still, we were not featured. That meant like our votes were getting throttled. So I just don't know what was happening there, but I'll give them like the benefit of doubt, because Product Hunt has become very easy to game. So they've put a lot of filters and regulations on rules to not let it get gamed, which and we probably got caught in the friendly fire.
Acha.
The number one was Claude on that day, and they had full organic traction because they were on the homepage. We were just never featured on the homepage. We were like around 80 or 100 votes behind. If we had organic traction, I'm sure we would have number one.
Not bad, right? I mean, going against Claude is not a joke. I mean, it's a global...
Yeah, but my point is, if we had organic traction, if we were featured from the first hour, we would have hit number one.
Is it fair to say, it's more of a bragging right at this point, a Product Hunt, or like a status thing? Is that fair?
So there are 2-3 things. First is you still get a good number of users. So the maximum signups we've had in a day were on the launch of, or what it was on the day of Product Hunt launch, and on the subsequent day when they sent a newsletter out. So you still get a lot of users. Those users, are they going to be paying users? Are they going to be relevant users? I don't know. But at least if you are, launching a product Hunt is a great way to get initial users, test out the flow, test out the product, and just like actually deliver the value that you claim to deliver. So that way is amazing, phenomenal. Okay, you'll, instead of going to 50 people in HSR and asking for inputs, you get that in one day. Okay. Second is, I think it's still I don't know if it's a bragging right, but it's still a trust marker. Because if you get number 1, number 2, number 3, it meant that you had the community support. So you're not a random person. There was something that clicked with the community. So that was the other angle like we were going for.
A couple things, I don't know, just on the marketing bit as well, or maybe once you have a product, if I'm not wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, where I think your first initial 100 customers, I think you just got them organically by posting on, I don't know, LinkedIn, Twitter, or LinkedIn and Twitter, I think, or Reddit.
So I'll tell you the journey. Our first 100, we did not post. We saw people complaining about the problem on social media, Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, and a few other forums. And we reached out to them and we just said, look, we just want to learn more about the problem because we're building something in the space, and hopefully we could potentially solve this for you in the future. The first 100 customers were before we started building the product.
Like you had them on waitlist per se, ready to buy if you have it ready.
Yes. We validated the problem. We also figured out that no other player could solve it today. Okay. And also, what is the delta that we make in their business or their life? That was the journey from 0 to 100. 100 to 1000 was posting on different platforms. But you also do the first part as well, but more driven by, posting on social media, etc. Now the journey is more about referral, where people have had good experiences with us, things are working well, and it's a trust product, right? So people are more going to believe when someone else talks about it and not us. So the next journey of 1000 to 10,000 will be driven by referrals.
Like how much of a founder's time or a person's time do you think is okay to be spent on, let's say, LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, where they're posting about, their product?
Depends on the business. For us, it's super important, or at least that's how I rationalize my time on social media, at least. 2-3 points, right? First of all, just coming back to, we are a payments product, so it requires trust. Okay. Dodo Payments has no trust, as it has very little now, but when we started, it had no trust. Nobody knew what it meant, etc. But as founders, there were some people who knew us, and we had a certain brand of, what are the things we've done in the past and what are the things that we know of. So building a founder brand was a shortcut to lending credibility to Dodo Payments and the product. Okay. So that is one reason why you spend a lot of time there. Second is, for me personally, or Dodo Payments personally, our customers are sitting on social media and they're cribbing about the problem statement. So it makes a lot of sense for me to spend time where my customers are hanging out, which happens to be social media. If you're selling something where all of your customers are, chilling in the, the streets of Indranagar or Kormangla, in clubs and bars, then you should go there. Okay. And there are instances, like if you're selling something in fashion or I don't know what else, it would make sense to hang out where your customers are. So be very sharp on who your customers are and spend time there.
What platform do you think has been most effective? Like Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, like Any
They're
data?
all in different ways. So we have like, we focus on four.
Which is the fourth one?
SEO.
Okay.
So LinkedIn has been great for large accounts. So CXOs act like fast-growing startups who initially focus on the domestic market. So a lot of inbound from international markets.
So they
but
see
could
your
not-
post and then they message you.
They see my post over a few weeks, and then like, oh, what he's saying makes sense. Oh, there's like additional thing I understand, and there'll be one day where something would something would break, and then they're like, oh, I know like Rishabh talks about this, let's have a chat. That's LinkedIn. So large accounts come from LinkedIn. The dev experience is driven mainly by like, you're able to get a lot of developers excited on Twitter. And Reddit is actually, the Reddit audience is super smart. So we actually only do AMAs, etc. And people talk about us. We never talk about ourselves. And I mean, I did that for a while and I got a lot of backlash, like, why are you selling your products, etc. But I'm like, I'm the founder. If you're complaining about international payments, it is my job to come and pitch. But now I think we have hit that inflection point, like if there's any post on any of these platforms, someone will talk about Dodo payments. So we don't really spend too much time on Reddit.
That's good, right? I
yeah.
mean, that means the product has, reached a critical mass or...
I don't know about product, but at least word of mouth is we are seeing early signs of that, critical mass at least. We still need to continue the momentum, and SEO is great. Like it's just a lot of people who have this problem as a burning problem, and I may not be visible to them on any of these platforms. Whenever they search, they see Dodo payments. They can typically search on social media. They follow us for a while and then build that conviction. It's any product that payments, right? If for whatever reason payment fails, they are losing out on revenue. So they need to trust us that we will work fine and will work all the time. So they just like to track us for a while and build comfort and then work with us.
On the Reddit AMA that you did, I'd like to get some of your reactions on some of the questions you got. So one user had asked you, please guide us on user acquisition strategies. Your response was, there is actually only one strategy. Go talk to your users and figure out what should you build for them. Don't ask your users what they want. They themselves don't know what they want. Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so big, like just harping back to the previous question, right? Like why go spend time there? It's because that's where my users are. And why, if you are like building, say, a fashion label for the Gen Z Janta, you need to go to nightclubs and bars and see what people are actually wearing, what do they like, what are the typical price points. So you need to talk to your users. Don't get advice from somebody who's not a user on what you should build. You can get advice on how to build or why, but what to build will always come from a user. So spend as much time as possible, and don't ask them leading questions like, hey, would you like I'm creating a fashion label, do you want it to be blingy or non-blingy? Like that's not gonna work because people themselves don't know. You often put them at the spot. It feels like a gun to the head that I need to respond something, and they can respond with stuff that they themselves don't know. Yeah, they cook. Yeah, the mind actually cooks for them, and for that moment they'll believe that they actually said the right thing, and yeah, whatever. The psychology works in a weird way. So read the mom desk and just spend as much time with users as possible, and just be very clear who your users are. Okay. So that's also important.
How much time did you spend actually talking to users before you started developing Dodo payments?
So we spoke to at least 180 odd people, and our goal was like we want to have 100 people who have a very real problem and believe in the solution we're building. Once we hit that 100 number, we're like, okay, now we should build this. That took us more than 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you working that time or were you just working on this full time?
Working on this full time.
One more question here. R Needy had asked, what is the ideal age to build something of your own? Do I need an MBA to start as a safety net? Your answer was, there is no ideal age. Zuck started Facebook at 17. Ashok started Happiest Mind at 68. MBA has no signal. Often it is a negative signal for startups. I'm more curious on the MBA comment there. Because you yourself, did you do an MBA or?
I went to London Business School. The thing with MBAs is you have a safety net, which means whenever you see the first roadblock, you're like, this is not working out, I'll just bounce and go back to my job. That's like the biggest challenge I see.
You mean I'll go get an MBA, right?
No, MBA graduates, okay, because if you have an MBA from IIM, Okay, and you're like, people are like, my opportunity cost is very high because I could be in the job market and earn like lakhs per month. So my opportunity cost is very high. So what it means is people are like, I'll give myself 6 months or 9 months because my opportunity cost is very high. So they give themselves very little time, and even if they extend the time, or mentally they're like, I'll give myself 2 years. The moment they see like a significant roadblock, I've seen there's a trend that they're like, okay, I think this space is not gonna work for me. I'll just go get a job, and then maybe 2 years later explore again. I'm just saying there's a correlation. I'm not saying it's true all the time. That so the more safety net you have, the higher the opportunity cost, the tougher it is actually to give up on all of this and start up. That's number one. Number two is startups are a lot about quick execution and thinking from first principles. And this is like a very personal biased take, but I think a lot of the MBA learning is very secondary knowledge.
What does that mean?
So MBA is what you go to class, before you will get a case study the night before. You study the case study and you discuss a case study in the class, and then you assignments on top of it. So it's all secondary learning, right? Like how did like this company struggle with this problem statement, etc. But what happens in different type of organizations, you build some level of heuristics, but the challenges that you're going to face in a startup are very different nature. And a lot of the heuristics that you build in a B school are something like all people know, because it's now become common knowledge and it's being disseminated to the audience. The real alpha is created when you're able to build business or mental models that only you know or you have an edge towards. So business, because you're studying an MBA that a lot of people are also doing, you're not your view on the world, on the business, is fairly compact or like structured, which can work well, but can also not work well. So I think as a founder, you need to be very creative. You need to be very open to ideas, and you need to be willing to chuck, a lot of the learnings that you know in the past, and then think anew, which can often be challenging for a B school grad.
Finally, is there any advice that you would have for anybody building something either in the fintech space or maybe as again going back to the AI buzz, a lot of people are wanting to get into that bandwagon and start something, yours truly included. So any advice or?
I just have one advice that I keep repeating. I think not enough Indians are ambitious enough to think global from day zero. Like I met so many people who are like, oh, I'll first find customers in HSR, then I'll find customers in Bangalore, then I'll find customers in India, and then I'll think global. No, why? Just go global from day zero. Your customer can be in Kazakhstan, they can be in Brazil, they can be in Bali, they can be in US, they can be anywhere. Like, why are you limiting yourself? And then like that's on the B2C side. And on the B2B side, enterprises have way more money in the US, UK, Europe than India. So it's actually, if you have a good product, it is way easier to get a customer abroad than in India.
But it's very difficult to sell also, right? From India to the US.
It's a skill, I agree, but you should learn. Indians as a whole should learn that skill. Let's put it this way: we don't know well enough how to sell. It reflects in our SaaS, right? We have a bunch of SaaS companies, but very few have really succeeded in the US market, like Freshworks, Soho, ChargeBee, WhatFix, Browser Stack. They're a handful. I can count in my hands, which have been amazingly well in the Western market, but we just have, in my opinion, underwhelmed in terms of the true potential of achieving that we put in the SaaS market. And that's just because, like, as a ecosystem, I think we're still learning how to sell.
I think on that note, Rishabh, thank you so much for taking the time, and it was really wonderful having you.